you know.
Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to the City of Opa-locka Virtual Special Commission meeting today, Thursday, May 21st, 6:30 p.m. Madam Attorney, could you start with the actual rules and protocols that govern this meeting? All right, while y'all get that together, I just want to let the public know that this meeting was called by our manager to discuss an emergency order putting in place in regards to the reopening plan for Miami-Dade County. As many people know, Miami-Dade County released a plan for businesses to open on this past Monday. And many municipalities had very little time in order to figure out how those apply to us and put in place the proper enforcement measures. So right now we are discussing what that looks like for our city and our municipality, and if there's going to be any variance to the Miami-Dade County reopening plan. So that is the agenda item for today. So as the attorney comes up, they will let us know about the protocols that govern our virtual special commission meetings.
I'm ready, Mayor.
You have the floor, Madam Attorney.
Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69, issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing bodies without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 120.545B2 of the Florida statutes. The members of the City Commission appearing remotely for this meeting are Vice Mayor Davis, Commissioner Bass, Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Kelly, and Mayor Paget. An opportunity was given to the public to email the city clerk prior to the commission meeting. The city clerk will state for the record whether there have been any questions, comments, or concerns on the items.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call?
Commissioner Bass?
I'm here.
Commissioner Burke? Vice Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Mayor Paget?
I'm present. Commissioner Kelly, could you lead us in invocation?
Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, God, for all of your many blessings. Continue, God, to give us wisdom, knowledge, understanding. Those things which are pleasing in your sight. Continue to watch over our community. It's in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Amen. I see Commissioner Burton stepped away. Mr. Chief Dobson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, Madam Clerk, could you go over the guidelines for public input? And please note if there's any public comment for this special commission meeting.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the public had an opportunity to submit their comment ahead of the meeting via email to publiccomments@opalockafl.gov. Comments submitted by members of the public by email will be read into the record during the meeting as long as they provide the comments by the deadline 2 hours prior to the scheduled meeting time. Comments received after the deadline will be kept for the record, but will not be read during the meeting. And Mr. Mayor, I have not received any public comments for this meeting.
I would like to continue to encourage our residents to use public comments at opalockafl.gov so that we can stay engaged and be a part of the conversation. We do take those very seriously, especially in fact, at this time, we have a limited amount of public comments. So those that do speak up and speak out, your voice will be heard loud and clear. So we strongly encourage you to write up your public comments and be a part of this conversation. With that, we, as a special commission meeting, this meeting is called specifically to address resolutions. So we want to focus on this resolution and have our comments focused on this resolution. So Madam Attorney, could you start reading item 6.1?
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute and issue order number 20-06, attached hereto as Exhibit A, to reopen the businesses permitted therein within the City of Opa-locka, Florida, with operational conditions, and continue the closure of other businesses due to novel coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, provided for an adoption of representations, providing for an effective date. This is sponsored by the city manager.
All right, do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Vice Mayor Davis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kelly. The floor is open for discussion. Mr. Manager, could you introduce this item to the commission? Oh, we cannot hear you, Mr. Manager. You have to unmute your mic.
This resolution is in regards to an emergency order related to business reopening. As everybody is aware, on Friday evening, Miami-Dade County issued a new normal order in regards to the opening of new businesses within Miami-Dade County. The cities had very little time to kind of review this order and kind of go over the information within the order. As I have reviewed the order, looked at other municipalities, we have North Miami that has pretty much went along with Miami-Dade County's lead in regards to the reopening of the county. We have Miami Gardens to our other end that has put additional business restrictions in regards to 25% capacity for businesses compared to Miami-Dade County 50% capacity, as well as leaving other classification of businesses closed. This order basically outlines various stipulations in regards to capacity, what businesses are required to do for both its customers and their employees, in regards to sanitation of the businesses and various other protocols that are required. At this time, I know there have been a lot of concerns in regards to kind of monitoring the coronavirus, monitoring the reopening of the city. So I wanted to get the commission's input in regards to this matter. So I wanted to put this as a special meeting agenda item in case the commission wanted to impose this order in place. I have Mr. Gay kind of go over the list of businesses in the order that will be listed as open and closed. I would have one correction. There's grocery stores listed as remaining closed. Though that business was actually color coded incorrectly. Those businesses will remain open if the commission passed this legislation at 25% capacity. Again, Miami-Dade County's capacity is 50% capacity, as well as they have a lot more classification of businesses that are open. So this would also impact our industrial and commercial businesses. This would reclose those businesses essentially. And I asked the commission in regards to the nature of Opa-locka, us being a huge industrial and commercial city, if the commission wants to kind of move forward with this as far as opening and closing our commercial businesses and our industrial businesses, especially with the economic turndown. Opa-locka is very unique in regards to our commercial and industrial business capacity, as you all know, close to almost 50-50%, 50-50 as far as capacity in regards to our city, as far as compared to industrial, commercial, and residential. So those are also things we want to take in and look into account as well.
Are you turning the floor over to Mr. Gay, or are we?
I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Gay to go over Exhibit A of the emergency order.
Good evening, Mayor.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. My staff and I went through the list of businesses and looked at the licensure And basically, we gave our opinion as to what particular businesses should be open and to what conditions those particular businesses should be open. We provided you with our assessment, and in comparison to our neighboring municipalities, tried to keep that information consistent with what those particular municipalities were doing in order to make a determination as to how the city of Opa-locka should respond. So the information has been provided for you. If you have any other questions or concerns regarding the information and how it is presented, I will address those particular questions at this time.
All right, the floor is open for discussion.
Mayor,
Mr. Commissioner Kelly.
okay, if I'm understanding correctly, I know the county went to 50. Mr. Manager, this emergency order would basically mirror that, with the exception of a business you said would still be at 25 versus what the 50 of the county is proposing.
All category of businesses within the city of Opa-locka that will remain open will be at a 25% capacity. So that'd be less capacity. Also, we are looking at, we kind of looked at Miami Gardens and their restrictions. They still have certain classification of businesses that remain closed. So the Miami-Dade County kind of opened up barbershops, opened up basically the majority of businesses in Miami-Dade County. This restriction will actually shutter businesses, certain classifications of businesses, and then businesses that are open would reduce their capacity from 50% to 25%. So basically, it's 50%. The capacity is based on what the fire marshal allows in the specific building. So, for example, Family Dollar, they may have a capacity of 100 people. That will allow them to have 50 people in the store at one time. Our rules, I'm using the example of 100. It's not 100 exactly. I don't know the exact capacity. I'm just giving the example. Our emergency order would reduce that from 50 people to 25 people at a time. So it will reduce the capacity as well as upgraded sanitation options.
Okay, so regarding Mr. Mayor, to the manager again, or whomever he designates, regarding the industrial areas that would, based on the county's order, would still be closed? But
no, the industrial businesses would be open. And based on our order, they will be closed.
Okay. Okay, so if we pass this, we're going to the county with 50%, but we just decrease to 25?
Decrease it to 25, as well as certain classifications of businesses to remain closed. So basically your industrial type businesses. So basically your industrial and commercial businesses are allowed to be open right now based on the county's order. Based on this particular order, mirroring Miami Gardens, as well as looking at other cities and their restrictions, will keep our commercial and industrial, it will shutter our commercial and industrial business. So it will close our commercial areas and our industrial areas.
Okay, I'm not sure if I want to close them all back down. I would really prefer to see them open with some capacity, because many of our folks that live around in our community that may work, all of them may not be able to go back to work, but I would want to see it shut down wholly. Mr. Mayor, this question really, I don't know, for the attorney, because if we're going to open back up, whether it's the county or ours, 25% in terms of capacity, some of our businesses, if we let them open or they open back up, are open later than 11, which falls with the curfew issue. And I know that's a separate type of issue, but I need to know where that would fall in terms of this conversation. Because we're going to open back up, and let some of these folks operate. Some of these businesses, whether they probably should or not, that's a different story, are open later than 11 or have been open later than 11 when they normally function. So since we currently at this moment still have a curfew, how would it impact reopening these businesses, or would it have an impact at all? That's the question.
Madam Attorney?
Through the mayor, I think that's a very good question, Commissioner Kelly. What you're looking at is if the businesses are businesses that are not places that you can go to during the curfew, then that would create some issue that you probably want to look back at the curfew and maybe even change the time. So I think that's an issue. And Mr. Manager, through the mayor, I was wondering if that curfew, isn't it 10 to 5 as opposed to 11 to 5?
Yes, it's 10 to 5, correct.
Okay, so you're looking at businesses that are, could be open past, 10 o'clock where that could be a problem or create a conflict. Yes, sir.
That's why I bring it up. So that's just my colleagues in this discussion as you're discussing, because that could be a issue if you open back up, whether it's 25% or 50%. Some of these businesses are open past 10. Not that they probably should be, but they are. So if you let them back open, you got to deal with the curfew aspect of it as well. I'll listen to my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments?
Mayor,
Commissioner
Go
Bass,
ahead.
and then Commissioner Bass and Commissioner Burke.
To the city manager, what is our rationale for going this route as it relates to our industrial areas? Saying that they will be closed totally if we go this route.
So again, it's reviewing. So it's number one, being proactive, Commissioner, and looking at how the county is reopening its borders, looking at the city and its reopening plan, and looking at potential further restrictions. So this is a guide. This is why I did not initiate or execute this order prior to this commission meeting, because I wanted to get the commission's input in regards to it. If it's the commission's will, we can open up industrial businesses. I was just giving a picture of what other municipalities have done as far as their COVID-19 restrictions, looking at the various other municipalities, kind of what they have done and what businesses they have allowed to open. And so one thing this commission has always stated, they want to be consistent with other municipalities in the area when applying policy in order to kind of be in a place where it's a gauge that is something that can be looked at. So that's how this order was kind of concepted and put together, as well as getting input from our community development department, which they didn't make a lot of changes. They made very few. Mostly we're mirroring Miami Gardens on this matter. My recommendation would be defer this matter until I get at least 7 days worth of data to review to see if the Miami-Dade County's reopening plan is affecting city operations or affecting issues. And that input I would get from community development, buildings and licensing, as well as in conjunction with the police department.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Burke and then Vice Mayor Davis.
Mr. Mayor, to the manager, with the county and the surrounding cities opening up, are they curfews still in place?
The only city that has revoked their curfew is the city of Miami. All the other cities, as far as the last update that I've received today, have maintained their curfew.
So there's still a curfew in the county?
So the county never had a curfew. There's never a countywide curfew. The curfew was individual to the municipalities.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Mr. Mayor, I guess it's just kind of trying to get an understanding of everything. I know that the county is I guess the county set thresholds at 50%, but we are able to operate less restrictively. The manager proposed, I guess, 25% opening, which is, I guess, less restrictive in the county. can you speak to, I guess, what those percentages are in the neighboring municipalities, North Miami and Miami Gardens?
So North Miami is at the same level of capacity as the county, and Miami Gardens is at 25% capacity.
Okay.
So North Miami is at 50% with the county.
Okay, so I'll be interested to see what both, so while you're researching what's happening in Miami Gardens, I also like information from North Miami, since they have a less, higher threshold.
Yes, and so it's very, and so,
Mr. Manager, let the Vice Mayor, Mr. Manager, please let the Vice Mayor finish.
I'm sorry. And also, you know, because I want us to consider, you know, businesses, especially small businesses, which, you know, mostly exist in our communities, they, you know, they oftentimes have a hard time, you know, breaking even or making a profit operating at 100% capacity. So, you know, if it works at 50%, you know, I would be amenable to it. Also, you know, just to echo Commissioner Kelly's concerns and the concerns of my colleagues, you know, I wouldn't want to see our industrial corridor shut down either, because, you know, I think what 60 or 70% of our industrial businesses are, you know, so that's a large percentage. So, you know, I wouldn't be in support of that. But that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, and I think that was everyone. Okay. All right. I'm actually not in favor of the implementing the emergency order as is, and the reason being is that I wouldn't want us to open up and then specifically close. That causes a lot of confusion, and that level of confusion I really would not want to impose on our business owners, especially when we are having issues with enforcement already. And if we were able to implement this before the county reopened, and was able to communicate that plan before the county reopened, then that would have been a completely different story. But because of the fact that we are just debating this now, it's already almost towards the end of the first week. And if we do put this in place, it would have been operating under the county rules for at least a week or two. And I wouldn't want to put that level of confusion. And then the other consideration is that the only cities that are doing something different from the county are City of Miami, City of Miami Beach, Hialeah, and City of Miami Gardens. These are the largest cities in the county, which also have the largest amount of resources to be able to put in place a plan, to research the plan, to get it out to the residents and to the business, and also enforce it. And that is a completely different story than what we have here in the city of Opa-locka. And it will probably just cause a lot more confusion if we do something different than a county at the moment, unless we move forward. So that's where I'm at in regards to this emergency orders. But one thing I do want to touch upon is the enforcement. If this was to be put in place, because in our last meeting, we just learned that our officers can go from one extreme to the next. And I'm very concerned about that. And Mr. Manager, I would love to hear your thoughts on such an extreme level of we're going to have the highest number of arrests in the city of Opa-locka, or we're not going to do anything at all. And that's what it sounded like was presented in the previous commission meeting. So I would like to know how that plays a part in the enforcement.
Well, Mr. Mayor, first, thank you for your comments, and I thank the other commissioners for the comments. Before I answer that question, just to kind of speak on the first part of Mayor Paggett's statements, I agree this matter should be deferred. This matter was brought before the commission because, as you all are aware, I not necessarily have the authority to implement emergency orders. They have to be ratified by the commission. I knew this would not be an order that I would execute that would be ratified by the commission just based on my knowledge of the commission. I wanted to provide this order as an option just in case the commission wanted to exercise it. My recommendation is a further deference, but also it's not always about the manager's recommendation. It's always important for me to provide options for the commission, regardless if I recommend issuance of orders or not. As you all observed last week, we had an extensive debate on the discussion, and we, some of us agreed and disagreed on the subject. And based on that, I always want to be very fair and liberal, as well as open in regards to the options to the commission, regardless of what my mindset or views are in regards to the matter. Because at the end of the day, it's for the best interest of the residents and businesses of Opa-locka. And my thought process may not necessarily align with that all the time, because I am human. In regards to the mayor's statement in regards to enforcement, I'm baffled. I'm in dismay in regards to the chief's report in regards to the level of enforcement going from enforcing and warnings to nothing. As I stated to the commission, I will be having a conversation with the chief and 2 lieutenants. I will be scheduling a meeting early next week to kind of go over this because I am concerned in regards to that. My message has been loud and clear through the manager's office as the chief administrative officer of the city in regards to the enforcement of these emergency orders and how they're enforced. So I do share the same concern as the commission, and I will be launching an inquiry into this matter, and we'll be providing the commission report next Thursday.
All right. Any comments from my colleagues?
Mayor,
Commissioner Kelly?
I'm not sure if I heard the answer from the manager or his staff. Okay, I did hear him say he preferred to defer, but he wanted to hear from us. So if we defer this item, we're actually following the county's order, which opened up everything at 50% capacity, but keeps all of our industrial closed.
Open.
Keeps it open, I'm sorry, at a 50% capacity.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you much. I still say enforcement is still an issue. I don't care whether it's 25% or 50%. Enforcement is still a major issue, and not just and talking about arrest, but I'm talking about whether it's mass, whether it's social distancing. There still seems to be challenges with that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any comments from other colleagues?
We're talking about, oh, go ahead, Mr. Mayor. No, go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Burton, I made some comments about enforcement, which we weren't able to discuss at the last meeting, but the chief provided a report that I think was pertinent to this conversation about this item, because of the fact that if we pass this item, it's going to be an enforcement issue. And it also goes on to, we have a few things. We have these emergency orders. Number one, the curfew. We have this order, and then we are potentially want to do a mask order. And what we found with the curfew order led to one of the highest rates of arrests in Miami-Dade County within the city of Opa-locka. And as we brought that concern to our administration and staff, that dropped to 0. And here we are trying to discuss laws and laws that have to be enforced by our police and code enforcement. And that is what we're getting. So that's something that's very concerning, and it kind of almost puts us as a commission in handcuffs, because it's like we putting in place things that go from one extreme to the next. And that's a very difficult situation to be put in as representatives of the people. So I wanted to make sure that we had that conversation with the manager. If there isn't any other comments on that, then I guess if there isn't any other comments, then let's defer this item and we'll call it a day.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, defer it to next week. You'll have some data. And can we please get the data before the meeting, not an hour before, because it's very challenging trying to look at information, especially what we've been asking and everybody's been asking get it all an hour before and really have a good conversation. So if possible, Mr. Mayor, to the manager who is, get it to us before, because I'm still trying to catch up with these numbers from the finance thing. So that's all my only request on that. Thank you, sir.
All right. No other comments?
Mr. Mayor, not really a comment, but just a quick question along the same lines of information. As a part of the businesses reopening, I didn't see a classification for, I think, like gyms, fitness centers. But I do know we have some in the city, so if that could, I don't know, be addressed as far as they're, in that order, if we decide to open or, remain closed or whatever the case.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. So tell me this, Mr. Manager, are we, and also to the commission, are we deferring this indefinitely or to the next commission meeting? I said I'm in favor of right now, we'll just abide by the county. So Mr. Manager, what are we doing? Do you need more guidance on that?
So I'm looking at the direction of the commission. If there's members of the commission that wants more data, then we can defer it to the next commission meeting, or even we can defer it to next Thursday's workshop for discussion and slate it for the next Thursday for execution, or we can slate it for Wednesday. There's multiple options. At this point, I move at the commission's direction in regards to this. If we want to wait and see how things go, we can easily call them. Now that we have the data together, now that we have the order together, we can easily, if I get enough input from commissioners, we can easily call an emergency meeting to implement tomorrow. If you all say tomorrow, implement. So we can defer it indefinitely until we're ready to implement, and we can call an emergency meeting to implement, or it's slated for a special meeting.
Mayor?
Commissioner Kelly?
I would, my preference is to have it on the agenda for a workshop. As part of the workshop, we should have some information. I don't really want to schedule a meeting to deal with this until we really have some information, and also see where the county's going, because they may change their orders as well. So I prefer to get the information by next week, put it on the agenda for discussion. And as the manager said, if need be, you can call a special one. Otherwise, we can look at that June 4th meeting. I think you all are saying are going to take place. I just want to have, bless you, that we want to have on agenda, but that would be my preference, because we're talking 2 weeks out for a vote. Because I don't want to just rush into a vote without really looking at the information.
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Burke?
Okay, now, in the meantime, while we're waiting to defer this, or whether we're going to defer it indefinitely, or whether we're going to have a meeting, so I can be clear. In the meantime, we're following the county's guideline, right?
Yes, sir.
The city is following the county's guideline, right?
Yes, sir. This order, the order on the floor that the manager is proposing is for us to be more restrictive to the county. That's what the order on the floor is. And considering the fact that by the time we manage this, the only city that would be different from the county is Miami Gardens. And so, because I think my city of Miami, Hialeah, and Miami Beach, they're waiting until the 27th to implement the rest of the stuff. So what we'll be doing is being more restrictive than majority all the cities if we push this through.
Okay, thank you.
Your thoughts, Commissioner Bass?
I guess you saw my face. I'm just going 100 miles per minute in my head, because just for the mere fact that we are at 300, for the mere fact that there are businesses that are suffering, our community is suffering. This is a huge undertaking to make this decision, that we don't cripple our city any more than we have to, or cause our residents to be in lack over time that's not totally necessary. But at the same time, I'm really, really nervous about all of this, considering we are at 300. maybe 17,000 people, 300, that is a lot of people that are sick. And knowing that our testing site is not up to par as it relates to our residents going in there, it's probably more than 300. It's probably maybe 3 times 300. And to know that we are in a place where we might have to make this decision to open our city back up at the risk of losing lives, it's something serious. So, you know, yeah, just thinking out loud, a decision has to be made, and we just need to pray that wisdom come to light. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Manager, have you gotten your guidance on when you want to defer this item?
We'll defer it indefinitely. If it needs to come up on a special meeting agenda or emergency meeting agenda, then we'll do so. We'll have it slated for discussion at next week's workshop.
All right, so we will discuss this with data. One of the things I hope that we do is to put it in a more simple format so that we're very clear as a commission about what that plan is. I would love for the plan and guidance to be presented at one of these meetings so that our residents and people hear what we're doing as a city and how we're abiding by Miami-Dade County and what does actually mean in the city of Opa-locka. Right now, the communication when it comes to reopening has strictly came from the county. And we don't know if our businesses and our residents are clear about what that means. So I would love to see more marketing, more information on our coronavirus website that details the county plans and what that means for the city of Opa-locka, and also a very simple version that can be shared. That 180 something page version is very difficult for us to be able to communicate to individual businesses. So we can simplify that so that businesses know these are the businesses that are closed. These are the businesses that are open. These are the businesses that are operating at 50%. These are the businesses that have to do carry out only. These are the businesses that have to put in place appointments only. Like that very simple understanding is what I'm hoping we can produce as a city and provide that guidance to us, along with really getting our residents to understand that we have a testing center here and we need to get tested, as Commissioner Bass said, so we know where we are as a city. So with those remarks, the manager has deferred this item indefinitely. So that is the last item that we must discuss. So with that, I have a motion to adjourn.
1 minute before we do.
Go ahead, Commissioner Burt.
You're following the county guidelines. As far as our green space, that's not included as far as the park's green space?
May I answer that, Mayor, through the mayor?
Manager.
So our green spaces are still restricted. We are still allowed to be more restrictive. So our green spaces are still closed until I pass another order opening those green spaces up. So we can actually set that up for discussion with our Parks and Recreation discussion for next Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Packett, if I may.
Commissioner Bass.
The manager just spoke about our green spaces, also Commissioner Burt. I would like to see if that happens, if our green spaces open, that there will be markers 6 feet apart, where there won't be a second guess. We'll know, okay, it's for me to stand here. It's okay for me to stand there. And maybe we would need less reinforcement by a police department or whomever, because if it's marked, we are more likely as people to abide. So just consider that as markers, maybe circles like I saw elsewhere in our green spaces, so it would be a safer zone. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I know Commissioner Bass, I wasn't advocating for them to be open. I was just asking, since we're under the county guidance and the county's green space is open, I was, so just to be
okay.
Yeah. Those are the things that We, at least that was my intent in understanding this parks and recreation conversation that we're putting at the forefront of our meeting next week, so that we are very clear on what that means, and our residents are very clear on what that means. Like, this is the key. Like, we got to be clear about what we're doing, and make it simple. And that's what I'm hoping that we can achieve through our administration and our staff, so that we're just simple. This is a lot right now, and we need to simplify this. With that, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. I want to strongly encourage everyone to review the article about where the city has progressed. And another shout out to our finance department for getting us to this point and making such a huge movement to getting those audits complete. We got one more to do in this fire recovery plan, and that would be the achievement of this administration. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thank everyone for taking the time out of your evening. Please be safe and put the mask on, y'all. Let's mask up. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Oh yeah, moved by Commissioner Kelly, I believe, and it was second by Commissioner Burke. So I thought I heard that. Right, Madam Clerk? Got that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, got it.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.